Welcome to another edition of the Sales and Marketing Power Hour with your host, Carol Morgan with Denim Marketing and Kimberly Mackey with New Home Solutions Consulting.
Definitely too much work. All right. Well, we're going to get started because I know we have so much to talk about and what a hot topic we have today. So, as I'm talking about, I just finished a sales meeting here just a little while ago, and it was, all about stop waiting and start selling and things that you can do right now. And so I know lots of people are talking about this. So we're excited to have Naomi and Mollie join us. Wrap up. Let's get a little bit of our housekeeping done as always. So, and then we'll turn those slides off, go back to our Brady Bunch view, and the chat is open, team. So we want to hear from you. The reason we still do these live is because we want you to chat us up and tell us what's going on. Ask your questions. Please don't be shy. So we want to hear from you. Some people want it to happen. Some wish it would happen, and others make it happen. That's a quote by Michael Jordan, so who's always an inspiration, right? So, and that reminded me of a story. I mean, when I first got into new home sales, the training that I got was literally, "Here's the keys, Mackie, go sell something." And and I don't recommend that. I think it's best that we train people and we help people and we give them the tools for success. But sometimes when you're given the keys, you just got to go figure it out and make it happen. So, and just be proactive. And here I am 20 something years later, still in this business doing what we love. And, I think that, maybe my boss was onto something with here's the keys, go figure it out. Cause he knew I would be invested at that point. Carol, you want to
All
talk about
right.
our
Yeah. Here's where we're hanging out on Facebook. If you haven't joined the Sales and Marketing Power Hour group on Facebook, we'd love for you to join. Come hang out with cool kids. There's always some conversation threads going. You're welcome to ask questions, start your own conversations, post something cool that you saw. We would love for you to share. So please participate.
So we've had some good ones. We've had some pretty good conversations going
Been
on
some
lately.
interesting ones.
Yeah, keep
Yeah.
us going, Carol. Talk
All
about
right.
talk about
So,
you.
I always like to say hope is not a strategy, which I think summarizes your Michael Jordan quote, because it's not a strategy, it's just hope. So, um, what my company does is really phenomenal content. So we write original quality content for social media, blogging, public relations, strategic marketing, and we also do all the advertising things. So give us a call if we can help you, or ping me in Vegas if you're going to be there. Back to you, Mackie.
All righty. So for anybody who doesn't know who I am, my company is New Home Solutions Consulting. And what I do is always such a mystery, and I don't know why it's such a mystery. So hopefully this makes sense. I always say that my company is the company you call when you want sales to be the engine that drives your train rather than running it off the tracks. But all things sales and marketing, all your policies, procedures, your KPIs, all of those things that go behind the scene, all the parts and pieces that make the whole. We want to make sure that sales is predictable and profitable. So and also consistent. So when you can do all of those things, then it's much easier for you to run your company because you know what that sales pace is going to be. So that does involve training. It does involve some coaching too. And certainly those are things that I do, but that consulting behind the scenes, doing those SWOT analysis and working with the company as a whole to make sure everything works together. If I can help with that, let me know. And of course, if you're going to be in Vegas, so come see me. Let's set up some time to grab a coffee or just sit down in Sales Central for a few minutes and put a face with a name. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Naomi from Stevens Fine Homes to talk about her, and I'm excited. I'm going to be speaking with you.
Yes, in Las Vegas. I can't wait. I'm Naomi Wright Bellamy. I work for Stevens Fine Homes. Just celebrated my 5th year here. We're in the Wilmington, North Carolina market. We've been building new homes in the southeastern North Carolina area for about 30 years. We built over 3,000 new homes. I love what I do. I'm a one-woman marketing department. So from signage to digital to all of the advertising that you see, I do it all. So we keep all those plates spinning over here. That's what I do.
That we can all relate with. And Molly.
Hi, I'm Mollie Elkman. My company is Group 2, so we do marketing for home builders, and that's everything from websites to sales offices to all the different marketing platforms. And I also am the author of The House That She Built and the founder of the She Built Foundation. So both of those are to better our industry, bring the skilled trades in front of young learners, and also to grow our future workforce. So that's become a real passion of mine, and I'm really happy to be here with a whole panel of women in the industry, and thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, we are so glad
you're
that you are
here.
here. And if you have not ordered The House That She Built, get it. It's fantastic. It's such a great message and so needed right now when we're all struggling so much to build our industry, build up trades. Everybody needs people. And this book is an inspiration in getting them early for that, for sure. Builder Show. Molly, where are you going to be at the Builder Show? Where are you talking?
Okay, so I have a lot going on. I'm going to put some of them in here. So Tuesday I'll be at PWB. I'm doing a book signing with 84 Lumber and Anderson, and then I have a program called Tapping into Emotions, how to unlock the unspoken in your sales process. And then on Wednesday, I'm doing a book signing with Odie, and then I'm doing an encore of that program again. So if you connect with me on social media, I'm going to post everything there, and I would love to see everyone.
They can also search for you at buildershow.com, right?
Exactly,
And
yes.
type in Mollie Elkman at buildershow.com. It'll tell you everywhere she's going to be.
Perfect.
All right, Naomi, where are you going to be?
So I am going to be speaking with you, Kimberly. So I'll be right there on stage with you at the jam session on Wednesday, February 26th at 8:30 in the Learning Lab West 232. And then I'm also going to be filling in for my coworker, Vice President Jenna Parker. She's going to be speaking, or I guess I'll be speaking for her. Also on Wednesday at 4 in West 315. Going to be talking with Roland Narnsey, who's another trainer here in the new homes industry, collaborating for more leads, higher sales, and better customer experiences. So got a lot going on.
You do, yeah. And your first show.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're gonna love it. It's extraordinary. All right, Carol.
Well, we're going to have to make some decisions because I also speak Wednesday morning at 8:30 on building an impactful brand beyond colors and logos. And I'm doing that session with Lisa Welter of JTB and Intera Homes and with Kelly Fink of Miles Brand. So it's going to be really fun. We're not going to talk about traditional branding. We're going to talk about branding master plan communities. We're going to talk about differentiating your brand with words. And then finally, we're going to talk about all the really cool, colors, filters, logos, graphics, things you can do visually to really pull that brand through all of your marketing. So I open that's 8:30 in the morning. And then apparently I get to close the day too, because at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I have a jam session, which is called Do This, Not That, What Home Builder Marketing Experts Wish That Builders Would Really Do. And that's going to be a super fun session. That's myself, Greg Bray, Dennis O'Neill, and Barbara Ray from Wick Marketing. If you all don't know Barbara, she's awesome. So that's going to be a really fun, lively discussion. We'll probably all get a little, testy with each other and get some jabs in because, we don't always agree what you should and shouldn't do. And then finally, I have the next day, I think it's at 2 o'clock. I'm not looking at that one right now, a session at HBA, NHB headquarters that's called So You Want to Write a Book. And it's geared towards YPs and answers questions on publishing and my experience working with builder books. My 4th book is out at this IBS, so that session will be followed by a book signing at Builder Books. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Hey. So
I know it's crazy, isn't it?
That's a lot. It's yeah. So for
It
me,
is a
I'm
lot,
speaking.
and it stinks that I can't see you guys because we're speaking at the same time.
We're all speaking at the same time. I was just thinking because I really want to go to that 4 o'clock.
I
So,
know.
but unfortunately, I'm also speaking at that time. So, for me, Wednesday morning, 8:30 with Naomi, we're talking about building your realtor VIPs in a post-NAR settlement world. So with Leah Fellows. So again, maybe the rooms are close by, so you can hear part of ours and part of Carol's, and maybe that'll work out. And then the sales rally, which has to be on your dance card if you are going. The super sales rally starts at 2 p.m. in the spotlight room, and it runs from 2 to 4 p.m. And I'm just rock star panel, Corey Charles, Keith McKinney, Anya Chrysanthemum, and the one and only John Palumbo. So it's going to be incredible. And we're bringing back the rally to the sales rally. So come prepared to have a little fun, very high energy. And then at 4 o'clock, or actually at 4:15, after the sales rally ends, there's the afterglow in Sales Central, where you can do a Q&A session with all of the sales rally speakers. So, and there's alcohol involved, so who knows what we'll say at that point. So come, and we hope to see you at the show. Make sure you do reach out to us, introduce yourself in person with us. Now, I'm going to stop the share and go back to our panel here so we can get this started because we've got so much to cover. Carol, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're really talking today about marketing's role in setting the sales team up for success. This is going to be a really cool conversation. So just going to kick it off with, what are some things that marketing must make sure is running well to drive traffic to the sales team? Molly, you want to kick us off?
Sure. So I think, the first thing that marketing needs to do well is communicate internally. I think that that's something we're seeing right now is overall communication has fallen away. And that's a really huge opportunity for teams to work really well together. I tend to look at like kind of the big picture before some of the tactics. And I know Naomi, you'll probably want to get into some of the tactics that you guys are doing. But I think like that's what I'm seeing across home building companies is that, the sales teams don't necessarily know what message is going out there. Internally, they don't know what message is going out there. And just starting with really strong internal communication is always going to set your entire company up for success.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Naomi, what do you want to add?
Yeah, so I agree with that wholeheartedly. That's one of the things that we definitely strive to do here at our company. We're small, so we're lucky that we talk to each other all of the time, but I know that can be a challenge in larger organizations. One of the things that I would say is setting up obviously your pipeline and your funnel with all of your digital strategy in place. So you want to make sure that you've got a social strategy, that you've got a good solid digital strategy, that if you are going to be planning to do any other outside advertising campaigns, television, radio, billboards, any of those fun things, that making sure that all of those messages are going out. And then to Molly's point, making sure that you're communicating with your OSCs and with your sales team of how and when those messages are going out, just to make sure that they understand who we're targeting and why.
Yeah. Well, and taking that or building on that, letting them know what messages are going out, but also letting them know, okay, we're sending these messages out. We're starting this new, promotion on all the socials. So please go like, comment, share, so that your buyers who are in process and maybe following you as the agent see that information as well. That's one of the things that I see that a lot of sales teams don't do. And I think it would really help them as well as it would help marketing because, it's kind of each one reaches 1,000 people or more once you start sharing it. So you want to share those messages so that you reach more people and thus build a bigger sales pipeline.
Well, and your page grows too, as encouraging your sales team to also comment. And maybe sometimes we have to share what those comments need to be or give them some form of some parameters. Because a lot of people, it's like you're asking them to publicly speak. And they're just like a deer in the headlights. They're like, I don't know what to say. I'm just going to like it. And I'm like, well, likes are good, but comments are so much better. And of course, then sharing.
Sharing.
Yeah, and then sharing beyond that. So when you're doing those things, you're really helping the company to get the exposure and stay on brand because it's coming from that company voice at the same time. So knowing that messaging, Molly, I want to go back to what you said because I think that's so critical. A lot of times when I'm brought in, I do traction and with Gino Wickman's traction. I work as an implementer with a lot of builders on this. And the place that we start is what is your messaging, both internally and externally. And you'd be surprised. They're like, well, this is what we do. I'm like, that's what you do. What is your messaging? We have to go back. That's not an exercise to be taken lightly. Who are you is a big question. And if you don't know, how do you expect your teams to know who you are and what your brand and your messaging is?
So that all goes back to brand. That elevator speech, who are you? What do you do?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I to piggyback on that, one of the things that I've done here in my 5 years with Stevens is making sure that before I got here, it was a lot of this is what we have, this is where we have it, and this is how much it costs. So just dialing back on some of those details and infusing more of that emotion and that why you're buying your home in the first place. So just kind of putting a little bit more emotion and a little more person, like people, into it. Versus
And
just
what's your story?
Yes, exactly.
You need to tell your story. And then what problems do you solve for people? So, and that's easier said than done. I realize, it's a challenge. I'm going through this exercise with my own company and it's a bit of I'm like, well, I do this and I do that. Well, that's not telling the story, right? So
it can
yeah,
also
for
be
sure.
hard because your story is always evolving. So, in today's world, like
Yes.
you're not a static brand. You're a brand that, if your brand is your character isn't static. Like you are living, breathing things. So I think that's also something that makes it challenging is we get like so attached to something that's created that we don't necessarily continue to evolve.
Good point.
That's a very good point.
And your sales team can be they're the tip of the spear, right? So they're the people who are out there on the front lines. They're hearing about it first. So by dialoguing with your sales team to know, what is happening out there and what are they hearing? What is the reaction? I think a lot of times sales doesn't understand the importance of their role in providing that feedback and why it matters. And I'm like, look, if you want better quality traffic, then give us better quality information.
So true.
Yeah.
So, we can stop doing the things that don't work. Let's do the things that work. Let's put more of our energies there. But if you don't tell us what's working, what's not working, or probe into, more than just, oh, well, they saw a sign. I'm sure they saw a sign. It was the last thing they saw when they drove in. I'm glad the sign is there and they can read it.
Yeah.
But why did they do something and take the action that they took today? Why didn't they take that action yesterday? What's going on in their world? Marketing needs to know that, right?
Yes.
It would be so helpful.
Yeah. Some of the most valuable conversations that I have are with our OSC when we kind of get together maybe on a weekly basis or so and just kind of chat about, what the leads are like coming in, what's going on with them, what's their demographic, what's their situation, why do they need a new home, just those types of questions that really you can dig a little deeper into what they're looking for. So that's super, super valuable.
Yeah, and I think our OSCs, we really do train our OSCs, and Leah, we've referenced, does a great job training the OSCs to really probe and get that information, and not only that, capture that information in the CRM. But we don't always carry that further with our sales team for them to understand why it's so important. And I always use the horrible analogy. I'm like, but what if you were hit by a bus? Like, would I be able to come right behind you? It's a terrible analogy, right? We don't want anyone being hit by a bus. Please be safe. Look both ways before crossing the street, but document everything in your CRM.
You're going to have to change that to a plane crash instead of getting hit by a bus.
Oh, no, don't even put that out there. I'm nervous about getting on an airplane.
That's not funny.
Yeah, and I fly, how often I fly. I am not a nervous flyer, but seriously, I'm thinking cross-country girls trip. If I had time to get there, it would have been a plan. For sure. So how can we tie all of this back to help with your digital assets? Because that's so important. Oh, Carol's having a fight with Kat.
Having company here.
Yeah. So how can we tie all of that information that we are getting out of the CRM, out of our sales teams, assuming that we are training them and they're giving us that feedback, to then channel that so we're getting those buyers who will pull the trigger with us, and the right buyers.
Yeah.
Go
So I think,
ahead.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
You go ahead.
So I was going to say, I think as marketers, our job is to show up and to show up with the right message. And a lot of times we get so excited about where we're going to show up, right? Like the tactics that we don't actually put our heart and our thinking into what that message is going to be. And I think that's like we were just talking about before. So if we really like break it down into showing up and showing up with the right message, the message actually has to come first, right? You have to figure out what is going to make someone act based on the message in front of them. Then you have to put that message in front of them. So that's kind of the approach we take.
Mm-hmm. And I have a specific example of how this played out recently and something we're working through right now. So we have a community. It's a mile down the road from another community. And in that mile, it has changed townships. And so now we're in a different township. Even though this new other community is only a mile away, what we learned, we were using very similar, as far as like our outreach and trying to, and our geographic area that we were targeting, very, very similar to the original community that's a mile away. But what we learned is in that mile, there's a mental shift that happens within the residents nearby. And that was something that I was able to get from our OSC when she was talking with these, talking with the leads that were coming in, and they just didn't, it was just such a mental jump for them to think about buying a home in this other town, even though on a map it's nowhere near it. It's so close to this other neighborhood. Just making sure that we have adjusted those demographics. So that's kind of what I've done, is I've gone in and I've changed a little bit about where we're sending our social ads, where they're going. So now we're going to a different part of the county to target a different pool of buyers, kind of like, we're dipping our hook in another part of the pond, so to speak. So I use a lot of fishing analogies when I talk to our people, but just making sure that the targeting that I'm trying to do is matching up with the people that are receptive to the message, because they may not be.
I think that is so cool. I love that you're digging into that. The other thing is sales and marketing people look at things differently and they have to work together. So sometimes a salesperson may hear a comment and their takeaway from that is so different than what a marketing person's takeaway is from the exact same conversation. So if they're not actually having that conversation together, marketing isn't necessarily getting the benefit of changing and evolving that message. So I love what you're doing.
We
help us help you.
Yeah.
We have to have
in
the
our local
information.
market, we had that, Naomi, where we had Spring Hill
Mhm.
was no man's land, and Spring Hill is this weird, like there were no weird, the boundaries are just everywhere. So you could really be in Land O'Lakes, which people wanted to be in,
Mhm.
and not be, but have a Spring Hill address.
Yes.
So it kind of depended on what side of the street you're on, kind of thing.
Yes.
And so for years we fought this mental battle over
Mhm.
the address Spring Hill. Instead, we talked about the area and that it was in the desirable Land O'Lakes area in our marketing. And then the address is what the address is, right?
Yes.
But it was even in that Land O'Lakes school district, but not in a Spring Hill school district. It was actually in the desirable school district. It was all of the things, but that mental difference of just crossing the street. So that's a really good example of how often, and our sales team, has to fight this challenge, and they don't really know how to do it. They really do need to lean into marketing to figure out, how do we position this right? Because it's always price, product, position, right?
Right.
You can't get away from those 3 Ps. They're always there.
Well, and sometimes you miss one, on the early stages.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
we totally missed it because we were thinking, oh, it's only a mile away. We knew that it
Right.
was very close. It's just over the edge. It's just over the edge.
Yeah,
But
that much too far.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we worked with a builder that built a community that they were just sure was going to be active adult. Now, luckily, it was not age targeted or it was age targeted, not age restricted. But once they started marketing it, and all their marketing materials showed, lifestyle photos of 55 plus people, and all the copy and everything was written that way. But, what they found out within the first 90 days is that they were selling to millennials.
Yep. I love
So,
that happened.
it was just a complete miss. But, you look at, millennials and boomers, have a lot in common as far as what they're looking for. So it made sense, but they had to completely, backfill all their marketing materials to meet the demographic that was actually showing up at the door.
That's such a perfect example, though, of how we have to be flexible in marketing because, 10, 15 years ago, you had a marketing plan and that was your plan. I mean, you put everything into this
Right.
one plan, and now everything is real time. The way you communicate, Carol, you talk about content all the time. I mean, your messaging has to be evolving and relevant to what you're actually seeing in real time. And it's really changed sales and marketing in our industry because it's a completely, like, you're only as relevant as your conversations today, right? And
Right.
it's just really interesting to see how that's evolved.
Yeah, I'm working with a builder who, the ramp up time for developing and going into communities is, it takes a long time. So here it is in the beginning of
Crazy.
2025. Well, these are communities that we actually, ramped up into in 2022 when the market was quite different. When you think about 2022, we built it, they came, they bought. It was take it or leave it. That's what was happening in 2020. Well, that's not the case today. And so this builder is dealing with some product challenges because they've got one floor plan with two color palettes and still finishing out some of this 2022. So the ramp up time to what is now the reality of today, it's too late to really make that change. So working with marketing, changing who we're targeting so that we're still targeting the buyer that finds the value in that offering. Because we may have to see 5 people to get one, if you object to it, well, we don't have anything else to show you. We have no other alternatives in some cases. So now how do we make sure that we're capturing that 1 out of 5 who does want that product and does want that market and does like the simplicity of the offering without having to go to the design center. So that whole messaging and communication back with the marketing team becomes so critical.
yes.
And the company has to be open to it because that's the other part of it. So company
Right.
leaders, you got to be open to this feedback and not just go, well, you're a salesperson, go figure it out. So we can't figure out a new floor plan, right? That's above our pay grade in sales, right? We gotta go somewhere else for that. So be open to that.
Well,
Now,
and as I said, there's some really cool tools out there now too that help from the marketing side, like Audience Town, who literally tells you who's on your website. And so, once you have all that information, it helps us as marketers target our messages better to the right demographics, the right places, and then that helps sales to do better. So, it's always nice if you have that open communication. But if in the cases that you don't, there are some tools that you can implement that help as well.
yeah. Well, and that's where like third parties like me come in because we can sometimes help to phrase things or get the data to back things up depending on who we're dealing with. So let's keep things moving and talk about our lead quality and how we are verifying that lead quality through the CRM. Are there particular tools that Naomi, you and Mollie like to see in the CRM?
Oh, this would really be the best question for our OSC. Honestly, I lean on her so much for those types of things, as far as like qualifying those leads. But I do ask for her feedback a lot, as a person, just digging into those leads. Yeah, that's one thing I would be interested to learn a little bit more about myself.
I love that. I would say when you're looking at leads from a big picture standpoint, there's one way to know if you have quality leads. You're selling, right? At the end of the
Right.
day, Sales and marketing have one goal, and it's the same thing. It doesn't matter if you're driving people and you think all your marketing is beautiful and you're getting traffic. If they're not buying homes, it's not quality leads. And I think sometimes we forget that, and sales and marketing kind of go head to head, and don't necessarily understand what the other one does. But that is it at the end, is are we selling homes?
That's an excellent point.
Yes, and that is the ultimate goal. But also, if you have a visual pipeline, here I go on my visual pipeline, fair warning. Okay, if you have a visual pipeline, and that means we know where the buyer is in their stage of the journey, and we've mapped out the journey, and we can literally click and drag our prospects from one part of the journey to the next. And not all of our CRMs have that. With the most popular one in our industry that is industry specific, we have a dashboard that can almost give us the information. It's just not quite as visual as that visual pipeline like you would see in non-industry CRMs that like your Salesforces or HubSpots and that sort of thing. But that visual pipeline is your predictive measure, because you can see where are the buyers and where are they along their journey? How long are they staying in each stage of the journey? And what is the predictability of moving them into the next? That we can see those bottlenecks very quickly, and coordinating with marketing to get some messaging out there, to get some technology support, can help unstick that clog when you find that you have that in your sales journey.
Yeah, and I want to add to that because it's such a good visual. Everyone who is in your pipeline is your sale to lose. These people are, if they're engaging with you, that they are a captivated potential buyer, and they're looking to rule out other options. So we have to treat every single one of them as your sale that you have a possibility of losing. And what are you going to do to keep that person and keep them engaged?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, do you all, I mean, I'm assuming, Naomi, that you guys use a CRM, so you know which sources are converting the most. Is that something that it's easy to get your agents to buy in to use, or any tips
Oh
for
yeah,
that?
they're pretty good. We use am I allowed to say which one we use?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we use Lasso, and they're fantastic. And our agents they're fantastic about making sure that all of their leads are updated, and they go ahead and give them a classification. And they stay in contact with them, because that long-term follow-up, that's critical. Like, that's key. They're amazing at building those relationships and doing those little check-ins. And sometimes they'll follow people for maybe a year or more, before they're ready to buy. And they kind of ask those probing questions. They learn about their life, like what's going on in their life, like that's preventing them from being able to make this purchase today. So maybe they're awaiting a job transfer. Oh, their job transfer is not going to happen. So now they have to see if they can find a remote position. So things like that, they really go, they're amazing at going that next level to really dig in to see what's holding them back.
And I'm assuming they're managed through their CRM to make that happen.
Yes.
So
yes.
Yeah.
So, and we're small, so
key.
we're lucky we can have meetings, weekly or biweekly to go over all of these things. So that's one advantage to being a small builder.
Well, even a large builder, that weekly planned encounter and going through the CRM. I manage teams remotely from across the country based on what's in the CRM. Because if you manage to that CRM, that data is so valuable, not only for the on-site salesperson, and we have to get them sometimes to buy into it, because there's that reluctance. I'm busy. I don't have time to do all of this. But then when they start to see the benefit of it, that's when you'll start to see that salesperson starting to really soar. And then once they're seeing the benefit of it, salespeople are smart, man. They're like, oh, wait, this works. Let's do more of that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, CRM is so critical. And with Lasso, we have the dashboard that Heidi has created. Heidi even has a Kimberly dashboard, so it's fantastic. I'm like, Heidi, need a Kimberly dashboard here, and it's like plug and play. She knows exactly. She has my planned encounter form, and it's plugged in. There are some things that I can't see because we don't have the visual pipeline, but we're able to build that with other tools. Because again, we need you got to have that visual. really, really makes a difference when you start talking about being predictable with your sales. And I think we all want our sales to be more predictable.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
what about bad fit
What
leads?
about
Say it again.
Carol, you're breaking
I
up.
can
So
yeah, can you hear me at all?
Yeah.
sometimes.
Sometimes. Like I say, the biggest challenge our builders seem to be having right now with bad fit leads is just pricing, getting people to qualify. So they might have been a fit for last year's prices or, 6 months ago, but they're not a fit now because they can't qualify. I don't know if you all are seeing other things.
We are seeing that. We're seeing where, like you said, their budget and their needs are not quite aligning. Their needs and wants are here, their budget's right here. So we're seeing a lot of that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of education that has to happen on the
Mhm.
marketing side. I think with a market shift
Mhm.
like the one we have seen in the past couple of years, we do need to keep the buyer informed and educated on what they can get with that budget, and where, have those conversations of where that mindset might need to be adjusted a little bit, and still show value to their life based on what they can afford today. I would say, in addition to pricing challenges, what we're seeing is just so much competition with incentives that everyone's message is really just getting drowned out. We have builders in a market who are like, well, this builder's doing this, this, and this, so we want to do that, that, and that. They want to do the exact same incentive as the builder next door. And it's like when people get scared, all marketing sense goes out the window and they act out of fear and make really bad decisions. And I think we've seen that over and over. So if you are running the same incentive or the same message as others in your market, think about this as an opportunity to reset and differentiate yourself and have a message that is unique for you.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
Great
mean, and
advice.
certainly what's working right now are buy downs, but we're buying our sales at the moment. So, and not every builder can afford. I mean, you're talking right now at, I think I saw this morning, we're a little over 7.2 or something. And so, if you're trying to buy down to a 5%,
It's expensive.
in most of our markets, that's going to be $40,000-$50,000 minimum. And in some cases much higher.
Also, it's when you introduce that message, right? So are you using that message to try to drive people into the door or drive them to your site? So you're immediately starting with discounts and offers rather than getting them in the pipeline and then introducing that as needed at the right stage in the process. So I think what we end up doing is really hurting our brand, hurting our industry by immediately devaluing our product and what we're doing before someone's even engaged. And that happens to me on retail sites. This actually happened to me today. I went to a website to look at a dress, and literally the incentive popped up before I got to look at the dress that I had clicked through on. And I'm like, how dumb is that? Like, I haven't even seen the product or seen anything yet. So it immediately devalues it.
Yeah, I agree with
Yeah,
that.
and
And
go ahead,
go-
Naomi, sorry.
oh, I was just going to say that sometimes like we haven't had a lot of success with some of the rate buy downs that we've done, because we find that in talking to the client, that's not what they need. They need, they needed, their priority was something different. So whether it was cash to closing costs or something different. So we advertise them at, with the rate buy down to get them in the door. But once we start talking with them, a lot of time now to my great frustration as a numbers person, I'm like, no, you got to do the buy down, but you'll save so much money in the long run. But we do find that their needs are a lot of times very different and that's not what they needed. And then we're like, sweet, okay.
I like to tell my son, it just recently started in the industry, and the company that he's working for sent him to a brand new community. Had some signage issues. We had some challenges with the stage of the community, the development. A dump truck conveniently ran over not one, but three directional signs. So got to question that one a little bit. So, and they were back further in the community. But his first real live buyer that he got, they had been looking since 2020. So young family, and they had a child and another one on the way. And their dream was to own a home, but no one was helping them to find out how. And that was one of the things I said to him. I was like, you have to understand what your incentives are and all the different ways that you can use them, because not everybody is going to need them in the exact same way. And his very first sale, he sat down, and it was the first buyer in this community. They were willing to take that leap of faith and be the first buyer in this community when nobody else had bought. And, so you got to have, that's kind of a pioneer spirit, right? But he sat down with them and went through what those incentives were and showed them how, because everywhere else they're like, we just can't afford it. We just can't afford it. And he said, well, let's figure out, because we've got these great incentives. And if we layer these things and we move these things around, this might work for you. And he was able to get them qualified, based on layering those things together. And no one had taken that time to sit down with that buyer. So just because we have this great marketing tool or this great marketing program, if sales doesn't really understand it and understand the nuance of it, because in sales, we're like, oh, well, that's the mortgage company. That's this, that, we don't want to really sit down and go through numbers with people. Numbers sell. People want to know, if they love your product, now they want to know, how can I do this? Can I do it? And so we have to train our sales teams. No matter the best marketing program in the world, without a well-oiled sales machine, is not going to work. You got to figure that stuff out. And he's a newbie, and he figured it out. Now he's my newbie, but he's still a newbie.
He's been training his whole life. He just
He has. Yes, he can even tell my jokes and my stories, right?
That's funny.
So let's move into a little bit more about like OSCs. And Naomi, you brought this up, that the OSCs are so valuable. And talk a little bit about the role of the OSC, because I do think, not that we're going to tread into OSC territory too far, but I do think that that's such a valuable transition between marketing and sales.
It really is. It's like a handoff in a football game or something. I mean, it really is, because it moves the ball down the field. We just kind of tee it up and they just kind of run with it. So I'm using all the different sports analogies. They're all mixed up. Sorry about that.
No team.
But no, so it is fantastic, because they're like for us, and what we do, we funnel all of our leads to the OSC, whether they're coming, they're calling on the phone, whether they're emailing us, texting us, wherever they all end up at the same place. And so she really is, like, we call her in all of our marketing the first step, the first person that you're going to meet on your journey towards home ownership. So that first line of defense, and just making sure that you have somebody there that's super knowledgeable, is invaluable. It really is. We used to do it a different way. We used to do it where me and the sales manager were the ones that were receiving the leads, and then we would send them out as they needed to go out. But with that, there's no long-term follow-up. We're not really engaged and deep in the inventory. We can't respond to them appropriately. It was a terrible system. I don't recommend doing that. I think it's not the way to go.
Yeah. So
that handoff. I was just going to say, that handoff is just so important.
It really is. It really is.
I totally agree with what you're saying. I mean, this is your first impression, right? It's also the beginning of your customer experience, really. Like, what is it like to work with your organization? Alexis Udine at Group 2 runs our OSC program. We actually do OSC training for building companies that we work with. And it's amazing for me to watch her, because she was an OSC for a builder, and she's, been doing this for so many years. And even that program continues to evolve, because the way people are searching for information and wanting to interact continues to evolve and change. Yeah. I think that role is only becoming more and more important, especially because that human aspect of it is just, it sets up the whole pipeline for success.
What kind of feedback does she give you about what the sales team, how their reaction and how they can make or break this during that handoff?
It's everything, right? And she works with them directly. The other thing that is so important is, And this is for all of us, right? Like we know best practices, but we have to be reminded. And it's not like you're like, oh, I'm trained and now I'm done and my career is going for the rest of my life. Like we all need these resets. And I always say, like, the builder show for me is that, right? We all know these things, but we get reminded of what should be the priorities. And so we actually have a lot of people who are going through her training program multiple times. Obviously, the program evolves and there's more content that's added if, coming through it. But it's not like one and done. You hear something one time and then you're an expert at it. You have to continue to invest in your education and your training.
Yeah, people always say,
I
when
guess
when I'm training, they always say, yeah, it sounds so easy when you do it. I've been literally training 26 years on this
Yes.
stuff. So it's,
Yeah.
you have to, like you said, you have to constantly do it. From the sales perspective, for me, I want the salesperson to know everything that OSC has learned about the prospect. I want them to be prepared so that they can just roll out the red carpet and it's like just meeting a friend that you already know so much about. Not that we want to make assumptions about that buyer, and we certainly still need to meet and greet and build that rapport. But when the buyer knows that they've already talked to one person and then they're talking to somebody else and that person cared enough to share the information, because when they have, I mean, think about your own experience. If you call a big company, if I call up a rental car company, for instance, and they keep transferring me off, because this happens, rental car companies just drive me insane. But they keep handing you off and nobody tells the next person. And I have to start my story over and over and over again. It's really annoying.
Yes.
Right. It's friction. And
Yes.
it's just it makes it a friction-filled experience. I guess I'm curious. Do we talk about OSC training all the time? Do we talk about training for the agent, or do we do any training for the agent that's receiving that lead on how they need to nurture that lead or handle that lead differently? Is there any program like that your company does, Naomi or Mollie?
Yes, we do use sales training for that. And we have am I allowed to say who we use? Okay. We
Sure.
use Roland Narnsey, New Home Sales Plus, and he comes in and works with our salespeople, and he's phenomenal. And that's kind of it really is important, just communicating with, bringing in the lead and then handing it off, and then what do you do now? So, and like you said, it's so nice to have somebody that's already pre-introduced you, explained your situation, so you don't have to re-explain the situation again and again and again.
Yeah,
So
it's like going to the doctor's office. You tell them why you're coming, then you tell the nurse or the medical assistant why you're there, and then the nurse comes in and takes your vitals and asks the same questions again, and then the doctor comes in and asks the same questions. It's just so frustrating. It's like, don't you all talk? Can't you read that chart? Do I have to answer these questions all over again? And it's frustrating at the doctor's office, but I can't imagine if you're trying to buy a $500,000 or up home in this market, how frustrating it is if your information is lost in transit.
Yeah, it totally is. And I think all of us can do a better job at training about that handoff. I ran track in high school, and I ran on the 4x4 relay, and it was at that point you were, you won or lost based on how well you handed off the baton. And I think that's very true. So to keep your sports analogy going, I think that's very true. That's where we win or lose these things.
Do we want to
let's
talk about
go ahead
building a network? Is that where we want to go next? Kimberly, you want to talk a little bit about that, high tech and high touch, and how to create that VIP realtor program?
Yes, this is always a passion of mine. So, I mean, Naomi knows this all too well since we're preparing for this at IBS, but our agents that we've hired since 2019 and 2020, they want to text everything. They want everything to be tech, tech, tech. And then we have our agents that were before that are, not so comfortable with technology. And you've got this really interesting melding of the two right now. High tech can help you do more, but it never replaces high touch. So use the high tech tools because they're fantastic, but don't replace the high touch, and don't forget that human touch. I mean, we were just talking about that importance of that human touch in there. And I think that's true when you're building referrals. Great to get video referrals. We should engage and get video referrals from our buyers and not wait till the end to ask for it. The most excited they ever are is right after they just signed the purchase agreement, when they're putting that sold sign out. Like, get that referral, then help them to share that information, have those specific processes in place for that. Use the video, use social media, use all of those tools to do that, but that doesn't replace the support of that buyer all the way through the process, and then earning the right to ask for that referral. So that, and I think the same can be true with your realtors. We just want to e-blast realtors. Let's just e-blast the realtors. Now I've got, others that are, let me send out this group text. There is nothing more annoying than group text. I'm sorry, group text are the bane of my existence. Just like, I do not recommend doing that sort of thing at all. So, and e-blasting thousands and thousands of realtors that are just going to hit delete because they don't have a relationship with you.
Yeah, and there's to piggyback on that sentiment, there's so much value in sometimes taking it old school. I think we were talking about this last week where we have an event coming up for realtors. And we weren't quite getting the RSVP numbers that we were looking for at this event. So you know what? I said, you know what? I'm just going to sit down myself. These people don't even know me. I'm just going to call them, and it's fine. I'm just going to call all 47 of these people. And in calling all 47 of those people, I spoke to about half of them, and that's fine because people are busy or they're just not phone people. They don't want to talk on the phone. They don't know this number that's calling them. But of the people that I spoke to, some of them were just so happy that we were reaching out to them. And I got 2 leads out of the process for this realtor invite only event that we were having. So, it's sometimes it's worth it to take that time to just sit down and do it. It is time consuming, but it's fun, and it was no pressure. It was easy.
That's awesome. But it's also time consuming to plan an event that nobody shows up at, and expensive. Yeah. So taking a little, incentive and picking up the phone, which, I think we all are kind of guilty of not wanting to do that anymore because technology has replaced it. But there's something to be said for that, phone call, and, even if it's just a quick, 3 or 5 minute call just to chat with somebody and check in.
Yeah, we also, if you're thinking about just any human, we all communicate in a variety of different ways, right? In today's world, there are so many ways to communicate: social media, email, phone calls, in person, all these things. And anytime we have something going on, we want to touch people in 3 different ways. That did not sound right, but what I'm
touch them appropriately in 3 separate ways.
Okay.
There's a whole nother course on that.
Yeah. So, like me, for example, like I do not answer my phone, but if someone at group 2 needs to get in touch with me, they're going to text me or they're going to chat me, or, there's always a different way to make sure you're getting that message in front of them. So if your strategy is to kind of think of 3 different ways to get in front of the same audience, you're going to get in front of them. And it's kind of like any relationship, right? Like we all communicate differently. And I think what our default is to communicate how we communicate. What we need to do is communicate how they communicate.
Bingo.
And that can be really hard to do in the moment. We all have our own default, but how do our potential customers or realtors or whoever, how do they want to get this information?
Sometimes it's multiple channels.
Totally.
So sometimes texting somebody and saying, hey, I know you probably don't know this number, but this is Kimberly with New Home Solutions. I wanted to give you a call. What's a good time?
Yep.
That's too much for me to text or whatever. I need 2 minutes. So, or I'll text them, hey, I just need 2 minutes, or I need 5 minutes. And I'll send a message first, even for somebody that, I know well. I'm going to send that and just try to be courteous that way. So you can combine the high tech and the high touch. But, I do a program for realtors, and the realtors tell me all the time, they're like, oh, so-and-so from this builder called me. It's so unusual for a salesperson to call that they literally will come up to me and tell me, I heard from the builder, they called me. like this salesperson, it makes an impression. They don't want to be e-blasted to death. Now, I'm not saying that the email is dead, because it is not, and it does work, but that can't be your only go-to mechanism. So salespeople, get out there, have a plan, and sit down with your sales leader once a week and go, I'm going to hit up this office. These are the purposeful things that I'm going to do to develop that relationship, because you only need 25 realtor VIPs who will bring you 2 transactions a year. That's 50 sales. 25 times 2 is 50. And if that's your goal, is to hit 50 in the year, it doesn't matter about your walk-in traffic if you literally are developing those relationships and building those realtors to where they know you. When you call them, they're going to answer.
Yeah, and I love that you're pointing out the VIPs, because we all know all realtors are not created
They're
equal.
not.
No.
And the
No.
majority of them are not bringing you anything. So to really focus on those who have brought someone in, who are selling, or, who are actively engaging with you, those are your stars, and really focusing on them is, it's easier to make the pool much smaller.
Yeah.
Yes. It's hard to have a relationship with a whole bunch of people. It's much easier to have a smaller group.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it's so much better. Like the VIPs that you're just getting, it's just a different class of salesperson. They're amazing, and they already love your brand. So make them love you more. So.
So round robin, we're up to the top of the hour here. We've got just a couple minutes left. What's your top tip to stop waiting and start selling? Mollie, let's start with you.
Oh my gosh, I'm not ready.
Oh, all right. Carol, I'll start with you. What's your top
I
tip?
would say, please use your CRM. Please, 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 agents, log everything in there, because it will help the marketing team better serve you.
Naomi?
Oh golly. I'm gonna say paid social media. I love paid social. I'm sure like it's what you see on the organic side is just the tip of the iceberg. You have to
Right.
go and on it, like take a deep dive. I love it. The best.
All right. I would say be proactive rather than reactive. Really think about your messaging and your getting back to those marketing basics and who you are first.
Yes. So, so I would echo that with have a plan and work your plan. If you just keep trying this and trying that and doing things very haphazard, have a plan, work the planned encounter so that you know how many realtor offices you're going to go visit, how many referral things you're working on. Make it very deliberate. And remember, we're in the relationship-based business. So if you're building those relationships as you go along and you have a plan to do that and nurture those relationships, you're going to have sales no matter what the market's doing. Any parting thoughts, Carol?
Hope is not a strategy.
That's so true. That is so true. All right. Anybody else in the chat? Do we have more? Do we have anybody who the chat's been kind of quiet today?
Very quiet. Scared of us.
I got to
Well, I'm
preach
so
somewhere in
excited.
there.
I'm so excited to see you guys in person next
Me
week.
too.
Yeah. All right, everybody. With that, I will say go out there, break something, do things differently. Don't be afraid. So, and build those relationships. Let's partner with our marketing peeps so that we can stop waiting and start selling. Have a great one.